Well, welcome back everyone. As promised, today we're going to have a quick look at some of the code changes I made to the Google Assistant project that Sid's eClassroom created. And look, I just want to say at the outset, I don't want to seem like I'm bagging out the job that this person has done, because at the end of the day, you know, it's very comprehensive, it's great, seems to work and everything like that. I just like to organise the code slightly differently. So we'll go through and take a look at the original code, take a look at the way I've modified it, and at the end of the day I've stuck my version up in GitHub. There'll be modifications to come as I go further into this project, but that's where we're at this point in time. So let's take a look at it right now. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the original code. So looking at the Git project, the code that we're interested in is in the source directory, and the two files are main and actions. So let's just open them up. Okay, so here we have the two files. Let's take a look at main first. Now, just something I should mention here, Python's pretty much totally new to me, so a bit of a steep learning curve and just trying to figure out exactly what the go is with it. And some of the changes I've made, you know, may not be best practice, I don't know. It certainly makes it easier for me to follow the code. But anyway, let's just take a look at the main file here. So a lot of imports and includes and things like that at the top. Some setup for GPIO information, also some other setup information for Kodi in this particular file, and some more information for Tasmoto, which, to be honest, I don't know what that is. So I assume it's smart devices that you can control. Magic Mirror setup information, a bit of code here to determine if we have anything playing on the movie player or audio player. Some more setup or control stuff for Tasmoto, and then we start looking at stuff more related to the actual Google Assistant. A bit of code here to do with turning on and off lights depending on whether it's listening or talking, and then and read the register device code, and then we slip into the actual main, which basically just sets up the Google Assistant, plays a little WAV file when it's started, and then sits in this loop handling the events from the assistant. So in this particular loop here, first we're looking at the hue configuration, then we drop into Tasmoto and then Magic Mirror, and there's a heap of code here. It looks like the whole of the Magic Mirror is implemented within this particular loop, and then ingredients, so you know, some recipe functionality, Kickstarter tracking, responding to the trigger command. So these are the commands. If Kickstarter.lower is in the user command, then it will stop the assistant and it will execute this Kickstarter_tracker function. And that's pretty much how it works here, but you'll notice that sometimes it's just calling a routine or a function, and other times it's actually coded in line. So this is streaming for streaming YouTube videos, stop playing things, the radio, which calls another radio function, wireless the same, parcel, news, Chromecast, play music, and then the music volume is all implemented in here as well, and then some stuff with Google Music. Now most of these functions that are external for this are actually in this actions files. So you'll note that there's some setup information in here for the Google Cloud API, Google Music stuff, developer keys for YouTube, some more Kodi stuff, GPIO stuff in here as well, the radio setup, declarations of ESP names, so they'd be smart devices, I would imagine. And then we get into some GPIO functions, initialize the color list. I think this is for the hue stuff, RSS feeds, and then we actually start moving into the functions that we talked about. And there's a function here to talk back to us and things like that. Look, it all works quite well and everything like that from what I could see when I tried it. But to be absolutely honest, I just found it very difficult to follow. Just not the way I like to do things. So let's just take a look at what I've done. So in this new source folder, still kept the main, but I've broken actions out to each particular interface. So actions Chromecast, ESP, Execute, Google Music, GPIO, Hue, Kickstarter, Kodi, Magic Mirror, Newsfeed, Parcel Tracking, Pushbullet, Radio, Recipe, Tasmoto, and YouTube, just to try and modularize it a bit. And if we open up the main now, you'll note that the top of it's much cleaner. We've got some API information or setup information for the actual Google Assist in this main function now, and we've got all of these imports for the different functions in the different files. And at the moment I've still got some GPIO stuff in here, which I'll probably remove out to the GPIO as well, but it is only the audio and LED operation. Now it's nothing to do with controlled outputs. So most of that stuff up the top is the same, but if we go down to the main function now, rather than playing a thing, it's actually just saying hello now. And then if you take a look at the main event loop, this is much cleaner in that it's fairly consistent in that it's just looking at each individual interface and calling the routine as required. So a lot easier to understand in the main, and also a lot easier to add additional features there. Even just simply finding the text that it's responding to is much easier. Let's have a look at the execute one. This used to be a response to trigger, so you could actually shut down the Raspberry Pi. I've changed it to execute, so now you would say, hey Google, execute shutdown, and it'll respond with, okay, shutting down sleep, and then shut down the actual Raspberry Pi. The same for reboot, and I also did a restart, which basically just kills the application and the service will actually restart. And if we look at GPIO, again, configuration at the top of it, and only GPIO configuration at the top of it, and the function that's called is past the phrase, just in case we need to look at anything further, and then it just operates on it. Now if we look at probably a more complicated thing, maybe the radio one, well, it's probably not that much more complicated really when you look at it, but again, any imports at the top, and then the actual configuration just for the radio, and then the main function that gets called. And as I say, if it needs to respond to any other phrases, then that'll be handled here. Maybe Google Music is somewhat more complicated, but again, the same thing. Basically, the configuration code at the top, any particular functions that are required, and we just call the main function that's required, and it's just a lot more modular and a lot easier to understand.
Okay, well there you go. There's a quick run through in the changes I've made. I've got all those files up in my GitHub repository, and I'll provide a link to it in the information down below. Feel free to use and abuse it as you see fit. So all I've got in the GitHub is the source folder with these new files in it, so you'll just need to basically copy these files into the source folder that the existing files are in from the original install, and then you should be able to just start up the project and run it as normal. Okay, well that's it for now. So cheers, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If you like what I'm doing, then please do like the video. If you'd like to see more, then please subscribe, and don't forget to hit the chime so you get notified when I post something new. And I'll put a couple of links here to some other videos you can look at.